So this was new today and fascinating to me. Last night on the show, you might remember, we talked about how this pressure campaign against Ukraine, for which President Trump is being impeached, this campaign was designed to get the government in Ukraine to announce some kind of investigation into Democratic presidential frontrunner Joe Biden. And because you can't put too fine a point on it with these guys, even if you try, the specific demand was that Ukraine needed to announce this Biden investigation publicly. They didn't need to just start an investigation. They needed to announce they were doing so. So, of course, it would have maximum, damaging or embarrassing political effect. But actually, put that quote back up there on the screen again from Bill Taylor's testimony. Because it wasn't just an investigation of Joe Biden that the president wanted announced by Ukraine, right? It was also that he wanted an announced investigation from Ukraine of 2016 election interference. 2016 election interference by Ukraine. He wanted an investigation announced into that, too. 2016 election interference by Ukraine is not a thing. It did not happen. It was Russia that interfered in the 2016 election to benefit Donald Trump. It wasn't Ukraine. So last night on the show, we tried to find in the wild some trace, some explanation for where that weird sort of backwards theory about the 2016 election might have come from. I mean, the whole U.S. intelligence community says it was Russia. The bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee just a few weeks ago said it was Russia. More than a dozen Russian intelligence officers are currently indicted by the Justice Department because it was Russia. It was Russia. So where is this weird thing coming from that Trump is pursuing in this pressure campaign in Ukraine, this insistence by him that it wasn't Russia that interfered in 2016, it was Ukraine that did it? Well, as of last night, as I mentioned on the show last night, the incidents we know of in the wild, where that strange thing might have come from, was documented in this FBI interview report from Trump's deputy campaign chair, Rick Gates. Rick Gates explaining to the FBI under penalty of perjury that the argument that it wasn't Russia, it was Ukraine, that argument was spread in the first instance in this country by Donald Trump's now imprisoned campaign chairman, Paul Manafort. And where did Paul Manafort get that theory that he started spreading in this country? Well, what Gates told the FBI is that he was parroting it from a guy named Kilimnik, Konstantin Kilimnik, who Manafort had worked with in Ukraine for years. Kilimnik is somebody who the FBI says is affiliated with Russian intelligence agencies. So this theory that Trump was demanding that Ukraine needed to provide him an announced investigation about, right? He wanted the Biden investigation announced, but he wanted this other investigation announced too. Best as we can tell, this other thing, he wanted an announced Ukrainian investigation into this weird claim that it wasn't Russia, it was Ukraine that interfered in our last election. That claim appears to have originated with Russian intelligence. Russian intelligence gets fed to Trump's former campaign chair, who's had lots of dealings with pro-Putin elements in the world, right? He's now in prison, right? But it goes from Russian intelligence to Manafort. Manafort is the one who spreads it. Giuliani admits that he's been talking to Manafort about strategy on this whole campaign that he's been running for the president in Ukraine. Right, but that chain of command sort of makes sense, right? Russia wants to muddy the waters. Russia wants to blame somebody else. Russia doesn't want to be held to account for what they did. Well, that's what we knew as of last night. Then knock me over with a feather. This happened today.
Now, are you familiar with these allegations of Ukrainian interference in the 2016 election?
I mean, there have been rumors out there about things like that. But, there was nothing hard, at least nothing that I was aware of.
There's nothing based in fact to support these allegations?
Yes.
And, in fact, who was responsible for interfering and meddling in the 2016 election?
Well, the U.S. intelligence community has concluded that it was Russia.
Ambassador Yovanovitch, are you aware that in February of 2017, Vladimir Putin himself promoted this theory of Ukrainian interference in the 2016 election?
Maybe I knew that once and have forgotten, but I'm not familiar with it now.
Well, let me show you a press statement that President Putin made in a joint press conference with Viktor Orban of Hungary on February 2nd of 2017, where he says, second, as we all know, during the presidential campaign in the United States, the Ukrainian government adopted a unilateral position in favor of one candidate. More than that, certain oligarchs, certainly with the approval of the political leadership, funded this candidate, or female candidate, to be more precise. Now, how would this theory of Ukraine interference in the 2016 election be in Vladimir Putin's interest?
Well, I mean, President Putin must have been aware that there were concerns in the U.S. about Russian meddling in the 2016 elections and what the potential was for Russian meddling in the future. Classic for an intelligence officer to try to throw off the scent and, create an alternative narrative that maybe might get picked up and get some credence.
An alternative narrative that would absolve his own wrongdoing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Turns out this thing that Trump has been spinning, this weird thing about Ukraine interfering in the election. I want you to announce an investigation into that. He's spinning that exactly the way that Vladimir Putin has been spinning it, and the way that Russian intelligence was feeding it to his now imprisoned campaign chairman, who was talking to Rudy Giuliani about strategy in this campaign. I mean, and that was just like an interstitial thing that came up at a quiet moment today. And man, what's next?
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.